Smoke still rose from the cracked ground. Buildings had turned into piles of stone and metal. Nothing looked alive in the destroyed alien city. Fires burned low in the distance, and broken machines sparked in silence. The battle had ended 2 days ago. But for one small alien girl, it had never truly ended. Lyra sat behind the wreckage of what was once her home. Her skin, pale blue with soft purple tones, was covered in dust and scratches. Her long silver hair was tangled and dirty. Her tiny hands held a sharp piece of metal, not to fight, but to feel less afraid. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her small feet ached from running and hiding. Her big violet eyes, once full of wonder, now watched the streets with fear. Her parents had told her to hide when the sky turned red. She had listened. She had waited. But no one came back. Now, the city was silent. No more voices, no more footsteps. Only broken walls, cracked roads, and the distant sound of wind moving ash through the empty streets. Lyra didn't cry anymore. She had cried everything out the first night. Now she simply waited. For what? She didn't know. Far away, a human. Rescue teams scanned the ruins with flying drones. Earth had sent help to this alien world after a massive attack. The human teams were told to look for survivors, collect data, and bring peace where possible. Cal was part of that team. He was a field scout, young, calm, and known for going where others wouldn't. His scanner blinked with a soft light. A faint life reading appeared, one that didn't match human or soldier patterns. Got something? Cal said quietly to his comm. I'm checking it out. Be careful, his partner replied. Could be a trap. Cal walked alone through the rubble, rifle on his back, but his hands stayed relaxed. He wasn't here to fight. He moved past broken statues and what looked like a school with its roof gone. His scanner led him toward a collapsed home. Something moved. He stopped. He saw her. Lyra had seen the man coming. His armor was strange, shiny, but not threatening. His helmet was off, showing a human face, brown skin, calm eyes, dark hair. He looked more tired than scary. But still, she didn't move. She clutched the metal shard in her hand. Cal slowly raised both hands, showing he had no weapon ready. He bent down to her level. It's okay, he said softly. You're safe. Now. Lyra didn't understand his words, but she saw his face. He wasn't angry. He wasn't loud. He looked sad, like he knew she had lost everything. She didn't run. She didn't attack. She just stared. Then, Cal did something simple. He reached out his hand. Not fast, not grabbing, just a quiet offer. Lyra blinked. Her tiny hand loosened on the metal shard. She looked at the human's hand. Rough, large, warm. Her heart beat fast. Her legs wanted to run. But something inside her, something soft and scared, wanted to trust just once more. Her fingers moved. She placed her hand in his. Cal smiled, gently pulled her forward, and wrapped his jacket around her shoulders. She was shaking, cold, hungry, scared. He didn't speak much. He just carried her back through the ruins, step by careful step. Back at the human base, the others were surprised. You found one? A woman asked. She was hiding near the blast zone, Cal answered. She's just a child. She could be dangerous, someone else whispered. Cal looked at them. She's hungry, she's scared, and she's alone. They gave her food, a small energy bar and warm water. Lyra ate slowly, her eyes still wide, but her body no longer shaking. That night she sat beside Cal in the quiet corner of the camp. A soft light buzzed above. Her hand held a piece of paper he had given her and a small pencil. She started to draw. At first it was simple lines, then shapes, then a house, then two tall figures holding a small one's hands. Her family. Cal watched, saying nothing. She looked at him, then pointed to the drawing. She tapped the small figure. Lyra. Cal nodded. Lyra. That's you? She nodded. Then she pointed to the tall figure on the left. She tapped it softly. Mama. She pointed to the other. Papa. Cal smiled gently. They were lucky to have you. Lyra didn't understand the words, but she smiled back. Her eyes watered for a moment. Then she leaned quietly against his arm. He didn't move. He let her rest there. Outside, the wind blew dust through the camp. The scanners kept running. The patrols moved. The sky above them held stars that felt too far away. But in that quiet moment, a little alien girl finally closed her eyes. Safe, for the first time in days, and the human who had taken her hand stayed awake beside her, making sure the darkness didn't return. The morning sun rose quietly over the camp. The cold wind blew gently through the tents and metal shelters. Most of the human soldiers were already awake, busy with reports, repairs, and patrol shifts. Lyra woke slowly, her small body curled in, a warm blanket. For the first time in many days, she had slept through the night. No running, no hiding, no bombs or shouting, just silence and safety. Cal was sitting nearby, drinking a hot cup of supply tea. When he saw her wake up, he smiled, gently, and lowered the cup. Morning, he said softly. Lyra sat up and looked at him. She didn't understand his words, but she nodded. She still didn't speak much, but she had stopped shaking. She touched her chest with one hand and whispered, Lyra. Cal smiled again. Yes, Lyra, he pointed to himself. Cal. She tilted her head slightly. Cal. He laughed a little. Close enough. They were different in every way, different planets, different species, different languages. But somehow it didn't matter. A connection had begun. It was small, quiet, and simple, but it was real. Later that day, one of the officers, Lieutenant Mara, called Cal into the command tent. She looked serious. We've received orders from Central Command, she said. All non-human survivors are to be sent to the refugee zone in Sector 9. We don't have the space or supplies to care for them here. Cal frowned. Sector 9 is 3 days away by transport. It's barely stable. I know, Mara said. But it's protocol. You'll take the girl there by shuttle tomorrow morning. He didn't argue right away. He just stood there, thinking. Then he asked quietly, and after I leave her there, what happens to her? She'll be registered and placed with other survivors of her kind if any are found, Mara said. Cal nodded slowly, but his face didn't look convinced. He stepped outside and looked over at Lyra. She was sitting in the dirt drawing more pictures with the small pencil he gave her. She had drawn the stars, a small house, and 2 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one small. That evening, Cal sat beside her again. She showed him the drawing and pointed to the 2 figures. Lyra, she said softly, pointing to the small one. Then she pointed to the tall one. She didn't speak a name. She just smiled and touched Cal's arm. He didn't know what to say. For a moment he couldn't even breathe. That night, he walked through the storage tents checking his pack, his gear, and the small shuttle's fuel status. Something in his mind had changed. He didn't want to leave her in a place where no one would care. She had already lost everything. He couldn't let her feel abandoned again. Back in the command tent, he submitted a request. Permission to escort the child to the Central Human Settlement on Arcadia Base. She has no family left here. I will take full responsibility. The request was denied in less than 5 minutes. At dawn, Cal prepared the shuttle for the trip to Sector 9, just as ordered. Lyra sat beside him, buckled in, quiet, unsure. As the shuttle lifted into the sky, she pressed her face to the window, watching the camp disappear below. Cal flew straight, at first. But after an hour, he changed course. The system alerted him. Warning. Flight path does not match approved route. He turned off the system. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. He smiled. We're not going to Sector 9. She didn't understand the words, but she smiled anyway. They flew through clouds and old battlefields, in the sky. Below, the ground was scarred, black from past fires. Broken ships lay half-buried in valleys. They landed far from any map line, a quiet forest near an abandoned research shelter. It had once been used by explorers, but now it was forgotten. Cal opened the door and Lyra stepped out into tall green grass. Birds she had never seen before flew overhead. Sunlight touched her skin through the trees. She laughed softly. A real laugh. It was the first time he had heard it. Inside the shelter, Cal found old supplies, dried food, and working power cells. He cooked something simple and warm. Lyra ate slowly, but happily. Later, she found an old tablet device. She pressed random buttons until a picture of a star system appeared. She pointed to one of the planets and looked at Cal with a question in her eyes. He took the tablet, tapped a few keys, and found a map of the known systems. He found her homeworld and circled it. She smiled. Then she pointed to another planet. Earth. She looked at him. He nodded. That's where I'm from. She thought for a moment, then pointed at the two planets and drew a small line between them with her finger. Friend, she said in her soft voice. Cal didn't answer. He just nodded again and smiled. As the night fell, they sat under the stars, outside the shelter. A small fire glowed gently between them. Cal knew they couldn't hide forever. Sooner or later, Command would notice his route was off. But for now, she was safe. And that was all that mattered. He looked at her, drawing in the dirt with a stick. He remembered what one officer had said. She could be dangerous, but all he saw now was a child who had survived something no child should ever face and still had the strength to smile again. He looked at his hand, then at hers. She had taken it that day in the ruins without knowing who he was. Now he was the one holding on, to her, to hope, to something more than war. For 2 days, the forest felt like a different world. No sirens, no orders, no guns, just the sound of leaves moving and birds calling from above. Cal and Lyra lived quietly in the small shelter, eating simple meals and learning little things about each other. Lyra was more than a survivor. She was curious, smart, and strong in her own quiet way. She loved to touch the trees, pick up small insects, and ask questions with her eyes. When she drew pictures in the dirt, she was always smiling. Cal fixed a broken radio and scanned for news. He kept the volume low, but Lyra often sat beside him, watching his face as he listened. One day, a message came through. Scout Cal has gone off course. Last signal was near Sector 12 Forest Zone. Search teams will be deployed if no contact is made within 24 hours. Cal turned off the radio. Lyra noticed his change in mood. She gently placed her hand on his arm, her eyes asking if something was wrong. He gave a small smile. We might need to move soon. That evening, while Cal checked their supplies, Lyra played with a glowing bug she had caught in a small jar. She hummed a tune she remembered from her childhood. It was soft and slow like a lullaby. Suddenly, the soft sound of humming was broken by something sharp, a faint noise in the distance. A click, then another. Cal froze. He knew that sound. Drones. Not human ones. He grabbed Lyra's hand and whispered, "Inside. Now." They hid behind the metal walls of the shelter. Cal peered through a crack and saw 2 black scout drones flying low. Their design was alien and their red sensors blinked as they scanned the area. Lyra pressed close to him, her breath shaking. Cal didn't move. The drones circled once, twice, and then flew off toward the trees. He exhaled. "They're looking for you," he said softly. Lyra didn't understand the words, but she understood the fear. That night, Cal packed quickly: food, water, maps, and the emergency signal flares. He handed Lyra a small bag with her things, drawings, a soft cloth he had given her, and the pencil she loved. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll come back." She nodded. She trusted him completely now. They left before sunrise, moving carefully through the trees. Cal avoided open paths and stayed near the river to mask their trail. Lyra stayed close, quiet, and alert. She had lived through worse. She could do this too. By midday, they reached an old supply outpost built into a cliffside. It had been used during the early days of the war and then forgotten. Cal scanned the entrance for traps, then led Lyra inside. It was dusty and dark, but safe, for now. He turned on a light and sat down to rest. Lyra sat beside him, drawing again on the wall with a small piece of chalk she found. She drew two figures, herself and Cal, running through trees with stars above. He smiled. "That's us?" She smiled back and nodded. But before he could say more, an alarm buzzed from his belt device. A scanner beeped. Movement. Outside. He checked the screen. 4 figures. Not drones. Soldiers. Alien soldiers. He grabbed Lyra gently. "We're leaving." But as they reached the exit, a shadow fell across the door. Cal stepped back, pulling her. Behind him, a voice shouted something in a language Cal didn't fully understand, but the tone was clear. "Hand her over." They had found her, and they didn't want to rescue her. They wanted to erase what she stood for. One of them stepped forward, weapon raised. Cal fired first. The fight was short, loud, and fast. Cal took cover behind rocks, protecting Lyra. He used a mix of human tech and his own skills. Traps, flashes, distractions. He wasn't trying to win a war. He was trying to survive. Lyra crouched behind a wall, hands over her ears, shaking. One of the enemy soldiers got too close. Cal saw him. And in that moment, Lyra acted. She stood up and lifted her hand. Her fingers glowed softly. Energy pulsed. From her palm, not fire, not light, but a kind of wave that hit the soldier and knocked him back into the wall. Cal stared. Lyra fell to her knees, weak but conscious. The remaining soldiers retreated, carrying their wounded. They were not ready for that. Silence returned. Cal ran to her and caught her before she collapsed. "What was that?" he asked, holding her gently. She was breathing hard but alive. She looked at him with tired eyes and whispered a word in her language. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew it was part of her. Something her people had, something she had hidden until now. He wrapped her in a blanket and held her close. "You saved me," he whispered. She nodded weakly and leaned into him. That night, they stayed in the outpost. Cal set traps around the entrance and kept the fire low. He watched over her while she slept, one hand on his weapon. He thought about what had just happened. Lyra wasn't just a survivor. She had power. Something rare. Maybe something her enemies feared. He looked at her sleeping face. She was still just a child, but she had saved his life without fear. And now he knew. They were not just running from danger anymore. They were running towards something greater, something worth protecting at any cost. The next morning, a soft breeze blew through the half-broken windows of the old outpost. Sunlight poured across the floor, warming the dusty ground where Cal and Lyra rested. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. She was tired, but no longer afraid. Cal sat near her, checking the traps and the scanner again. His face looked serious, more than usual. "You feeling better?" he asked gently, looking over his shoulder. Lyra gave a small nod. Her strength was returning, though she still felt strange after using that energy the night before. Cal brought her some warm water and a protein bar. She accepted it quietly and began to eat. Her eyes watched him closely. She could tell he was thinking deeply about something. After a moment, he sat beside her. "You have something inside you," he said. "Something they want to destroy or control." Lyra didn't understand the words, but she understood the way he said them. His voice was soft but serious. He took a deep breath. "We can't keep running forever." She tilted her head. Her hand touched his arm gently. He smiled. "No matter what happens next, I'm with you." By midday, Cal had made a plan. He knew the enemy wouldn't stop. They had seen Lyra's power and they feared it. That meant they'd come again, and next time they wouldn't send a small team. He checked his map and saw a possible solution, an old human bunker not far from their location. It was hidden deep in the hills, used long ago as a communication center. If they could reach it, he might be able to send a secure message to Earth Command directly, bypassing the officers who had rejected his request before. He packed their things quickly. Lyra helped, carrying her small bag without complaint. She was quiet, but her eyes showed courage. She was no longer the scared girl hiding in ruins. She was walking beside him now, and she was ready. The journey to the bunker took half a day. They crossed rocky paths, dry streams, and quiet fields covered in strange plants that glowed faintly under the sun. Cal kept a careful watch on the skies for drones or ships, but everything stayed still. When they reached the bunker, it looked almost like a small hill hidden beneath vines and stone. Cal found the hatch, cleared the cover, and opened the door. A soft hiss of old air came out. Inside, the place smelled of metal and dust, but the main system still worked. Lights flickered on. Screens blinked to life. Power cells hummed with quiet energy. Cal smiled. Still alive after all this time. He sat at the old control desk and started typing. Lyra explored the bunker carefully, touching walls and buttons, but staying out of his way. He sent the message. "This is Scout. Calreen. I'm transmitting from Bunker Delta 6. I have a survivor with me, Lyra, a child of the native race. She possesses unusual abilities. She's being hunted. She saved my life. I request emergency protection and direct evac. This is not just a rescue. It's a mission worth fighting for." He sent the signal through the old relay satellite, hoping it would reach someone who cared. An hour passed. Then 2. Lyra had drawn another picture on the dusty table, this time of a bird flying into the sky with a small figure on its back. Cal sat beside her again. "You really like to draw, don't you?" She nodded, then handed him the picture. He looked at it carefully. "You think we'll fly away soon?" She pointed to the bird, then to the sky, and smiled. He returned the smile, but his eyes showed worry. Still no reply. Just before nightfall, the bunker lights blinked red. Cal checked the screen. A small enemy craft had landed nearby. They had tracked them again. "They're fast," he whispered. Lyra walked over, standing by his side. "They're here for you again," he said. "But this time we fight back." Cal quickly set up defenses. He activated the auto turrets, still working after all these years, and set energy traps outside the bunker entrance. He handed Lyra a small device that created a shield bubble. "Stay behind cover. Use this if they get close." She nodded firmly. Then, the sound of boots echoed through the outer tunnels. They were here. The first blast shook the entrance door. A voice shouted in the alien language again. Cal recognized the tone. It was the same leader from the last attack. He responded loudly. "You want her? Come and try." The door broke open. Enemies rushed in, but they were met by sharp light from the auto turrets. 2 were hit immediately. Cal fired from behind the control desk using old cover shields. Smoke filled the air. Lyra stayed hidden, but her eyes were open, focused. Ready. One enemy got past the turrets. He rushed toward Cal, but before he could fire, a sudden wave of energy threw him into the wall. Lyra had used her power again. Her hands glowed bright this time, brighter than before. Cal turned and saw her standing strong, her arms stretched forward. "Stay back," he shouted. "Don't push yourself too hard." But Lyra didn't stop. She stepped forward, eyes glowing, with soft purple light. Her body was calm, her breath steady. She moved with grace and strength. The enemy soldiers hesitated. They had never seen a child look like that. One dropped his weapon and backed away. Another tried to shoot, but the shot bounced off the shield bubble Lyra had activated. Then Cal fired, again driving the rest back through the tunnel. Moments later, silence returned. The enemy ship flew off. They had failed again. Cal ran to Lyra and caught her as she sat down, tired but not hurt. He held her close. "You did it," he whispered. "You really did it." She smiled, then rested her head on his chest. That night, the reply finally came. A message blinked on the screen. Scout Cal Reen. Evac approved. A ship is en route. ETA, 6 hours. Bring the child to the marked location. Protection order active. Good work. Earth command out. Cal closed his eyes and sighed in relief. Lyra was safe now. Not just for a moment, but truly safe. And he had made the right choice. He looked down at her small hand in his. She had trusted him when she had nothing. Now he had given her everything he could. Tomorrow they would leave. But tonight, they sat, together in the quiet, under the stars shining through the broken ceiling of the bunker. Hope was no longer a dream. It was real. And it was standing on 2 small feet beside him. The sky was still dark when Cal opened his eyes. He had barely slept, but he felt more peaceful than he had in weeks. Beside him, Lyra was still asleep, her small hand curled around a corner of his jacket. Her breathing was soft and steady. For a moment he didn't move. He just watched her sleep. He had seen her scared, starving, hiding, but now she looked calm, even happy. She was safe, for now, and soon she would be somewhere better. He checked the signal beacon. The rescue ship from Earth was close, less than an hour away. The marked extraction point was 3 miles from the bunker, just beyond a flat plain with tall grass and old ruins. Cal packed quickly, making sure everything they needed was ready. He slipped a new jacket over Lyra's shoulders and gently tapped her shoulder to wake her. "Time to go, little star," he whispered. She opened her eyes, blinked, and smiled. They left the bunker before sunrise. The air was cool and quiet, and the early light painted the sky with soft pink and orange colors. Cal held Lyra's hand as they walked, both of them watching the path ahead. As they moved across the plain, Lyra pointed to the sky and made a small sound of surprise. Above them, the rescue ship appeared, sleek, silver, and shaped like a wide bird. It hovered for a moment before slowly landing on the ground. The door opened. 2 humans in clean armor stepped out. One of them was a woman with bright eyes and a calm voice. "You must be Cal," she said. "We got your message." He nodded. "She's the one. Her name is Lyra." The woman looked at Lyra gently. "We've been waiting for you." Lyra looked up at Cal, unsure. "It's okay," he said. "They're friends." Lyra stepped forward carefully. The woman knelt down and smiled. "We have a home for you. Somewhere safe. Others like you may be waiting." Lyra stayed quiet, but she didn't pull away. They entered the ship together. Inside, the lights were soft and the air was warm. There was food, clean water, and soft seats. Lyra looked around with wide eyes, then sat beside Cal, never letting go of his hand. The pilot spoke through the speaker. "Leaving now, heading for Arcadia Base." The ship lifted into the sky. Below them, the broken land grew smaller and smaller, until it looked like a scar across the ground. Lyra leaned against Cal's arm. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't afraid. She was going home, even if it was a new one. At Arcadia Base, things were different from the battlefield. The buildings were tall and white with green gardens between them. Alien and human children ran and played together. There were schools, homes, and places where people smiled instead of shouted. Lyra looked out the window as the ship landed. "Pretty," she said softly. Cal looked at her, surprised. "You said that in my language." She grinned. After landing, they were greeted by an elder alien woman with soft eyes and silver markings on her skin. She spoke Lyra's language fluently. "I've been waiting to meet you, child," she said. "You are not alone." Lyra's eyes filled with tears as she listened to the woman. She stepped closer and hugged her tightly. The woman knelt and hugged her back. Cal stood quietly watching the moment. The woman looked up at him. "Thank you, human. She is special. We lost many of her kind in the war. But now, we can begin again." Cal nodded. "She saved me more than once. She's brave." Lyra turned to Cal, her eyes wet but bright. She ran back and hugged him tightly. He knelt down, holding her close. "Do you want to stay with them?" he asked softly. She looked into his eyes and said, "Yes, but you come too?" His heart tightened for a moment. He smiled. "I'll visit often, I promise." She didn't want to let go, but she nodded slowly. A few days later, Cal stood on a platform, ready to return to duty. He had new orders, new missions. But something inside him had changed forever. Lyra stood with the elder woman nearby, waving with both hands. She wore a clean dress now, light blue with silver threads. Her hair was brushed, and she wore a small necklace with a crystal, a gift from the base. Cal waved back. "Be strong," he called. She shouted something in her own language, then added in English, "Thank you." "For hand." Cal laughed. "No, Lyra. Thank you." Weeks passed. Back on duty, Cal still carried her first drawing in a small pouch near his chest. Two figures holding hands under a broken sky. News spread slowly through the galaxy. A little alien, girl with forgotten powers, had survived. A human had protected her. And through that simple act of kindness, two worlds had changed. Lyra grew stronger. She learned to speak both languages, and she became a voice for the young survivors, those who had lost families but found hope again. She helped others draw their pain, and then draw their dreams. She often told her story to new children. "I was alone once," she would say. "I had no hope. But then, a human took my hand, and every child would listen, because the story was real." Years later, in a peaceful hall on Arcadia Base, a tall figure stood at the edge of the garden. It was Cal. He had returned, older now, but still strong. Beside him stood a young alien girl, now nearly grown. Her eyes were still bright, her smile still kind. "Ready to speak?" Cal asked. Lyra nodded. She walked to the front stage and stood before the mixed crowd of humans and aliens. Reporters, officers, and children all waited to hear her words. She took a breath and spoke clearly. "When I was young, I was afraid. I lost everything. But someone gave me his hand, not to own me, not to use me, but to help me stand." She looked at Cal and smiled. "And now, I offer my hand to others, because one act of kindness can change the future." The hall filled with quiet applause. Cal wiped his eyes proud. She had become more than a survivor. She had become hope.